Hey guys, welcome back to Loft Sports. I'm Tyler.
I'm Seth.
Today we're going to be looking at our rundown of the Week 8 matchups in the college football season. Not as intriguing of a list of games this week as we had last week. Not very many ranked versus ranked matchups, but there's still a few games of interest. Starting with in the SEC, Florida coming off of a loss at LSU against South Carolina, who just upset Georgia.
Yeah, South Carolina with the biggest win they've had in a couple years. The question there is, can they get any sort of momentum rolling? Maybe turn this into something, turn their season around? Probably not, though. I mean, Florida is not as good as we thought they were going to be, but Florida still is a superior team to South Carolina. They have more talent. They're better coached. They got better players across the field. It's up to Florida of who wins this game. If they show up the way they should, Florida should handle them easily.
Well, I actually disagree with one thing you said. I think Florida is as good as we thought they were. I was high on Florida. I had them winning the SEC East. They've done really well this year. They've improved over the last few weeks. They played LSU really tough.
I figured they would be more of like what LSU is doing right now, like that team that snuck into like the top 5 discussion. That's what I was expecting with Florida. So
enough.
For me, a little bit. They haven't got to that point, but there's still a lot of season left for them. They got some big games left.
For the record, I think Florida wins easily. Clemson goes on the road to Louisville, who's 4-2. A little bit of a surprise from Louisville.
It is. I thought that was, if you would have said at the beginning of the year, I think Louisville might have been a 2-3 win team looking at everything going on in their program. This, we really don't need to spend too much time talking about it. I mean, I know Clemson struggled this year, but it's Clemson. Clemson's coming off their most complete performance. They're starting to prime up for the end of the season run, getting ready for the college football playoffs. They play in one of the worst They play in the worst Power 5 conference. Their competition week to week is pretty much garbage. It's about time they start tuning up. Their little preseason's over, and now they're going to start revving it up, and I think they'll beat the crap out of Louisville.
If Clemson had not just played Florida State so convincingly, I'd be tempted to say this one would be closer than the experts think. But I think Clemson got their engine fired up last week. I think they'll roll.
They were challenged once, and now they're just going to roll the rest of the year like we thought they were.
Big one in the Pac-12 North. Oregon travels to Seattle to take on Washington.
Always a good game between these two. A little bit of a rivalry there. Not really a little bit. It is a rivalry there. Washington's been kind of a disappointment. Oregon has to a degree. I think we thought they'd challenge for a playoff spot. That's obviously not going to happen. But I still like Oregon here, even though it's in Seattle. I think Oregon's the more complete team. I think they'll come away with the win.
In the preseason, this was Oregon's loss. I had Oregon beating Auburn. I had Oregon losing to Washington, but I had them winning the Pac-12 and getting into the college football playoff. I think I'm going to stick with my original preseason pick. I think Washington upsets Oregon, pretty much annihilating any slimmer of hope that is left for the Pac-12 and their playoff hopes. Huskies pull off the upset. This one's a little bit of a reach, but Baylor is undefeated, and Oklahoma State is 4-2. So, did the Bears fall finally?
This is a week where, if it's going to happen, it seems like one of those weeks. I mean, Stillwater is not the easiest place to go. Gundy certainly knocked off his fair share of undefeated teams, and has Baylor really been that tested yet is the question. Oklahoma State's not a team to ever take lightly because for years they've been able to put points on the board. They seem to have those 2 or 3 games a year where they play way above what their actual talent level is. I think this could be one of those games, and I'll pick Oklahoma State in it, actually.
I'm going to agree with you. I think everything you just said holds true. Baylor going on the road. I'm not that impressed with their offense. They've struggled to move the ball.
Not the Baylor of old from Art Briles era.
That's right. So I'm going to pick Oklahoma State there. Big matchup in the Pac-12 South. Winner of this game is now the new favorite to win the division since USC's struggling so much. Arizona State goes to Utah.
Yeah, I know Arizona State's having a good year. They got some good pieces. I just really like Utah. They're a tough, physical team, hard to beat. Their offense has disappeared in a couple games. So is Arizona State's, though, to be fair. And I think Utah has, they're at home. They have the better defense. They've established themselves more over the last couple years than Arizona State. I'll take Utah.
I'm gonna go with.
It's gonna be close, though.
I'm gonna go with Utah. I actually think Utah might put it on them. I think that physicality. Arizona State is due for a bad game. They did lose to Colorado, but they were in that game. I think they're due to have that game where we're like, okay, this is kind of more what we expected of Arizona State.
Sure.
They're not consistent
Utah's
enough.
that type of team that can give one of those losses.
If Utah puts it all together, they can put it on you. I think
Yeah.
Utah's still the best team in the Pac-12 despite their loss. I think Utah rolls. And then the big one in Happy Valley, Michigan. Can they save their season and get a win at Penn State?
No, I actually could see this one getting ugly.
Really?
I can. I think the wheels are starting to fall off at Michigan. A loss here, a pretty easy loss, getting it handed to them before they also have still Notre Dame down the road in their big matchup with Ohio State. Michigan's a nothing to impress me just because you put it on late against Illinois when they fell apart. I mean, it's still Illinois. You were up 28-3 or 28-7. It was on its way to being a blowout, and Illinois comes back in that game. And if Illinois can move the ball like that, Penn State definitely can. They've been a very surprising team this year. They get after the quarterback. I like Penn State at home by at least 3 scores.
Wow. I think Michigan's going to win, and I'm going to tell you why. I think Penn State is as good as they can be offensively, and when they've played good defensive teams, last week at Iowa and then against Pittsburgh, they don't impress me offensively. And I think James Franklin, in-game coaching, is still way short of where his recruiting is. He recruits at an elite level.
Harbaugh's isn't this year?
Well, I understand that, but I think this game fits Michigan's profile for a win. Penn State likes to try to play up and down. I know they've got more talent at the skill positions, but this isn't Saquon Barkley and Trace McSorley.
They've
Yes,
still
it's
put
at
up
Penn
big
State.
numbers, though.
I get it, but against Pittsburgh and against Iowa, the two best teams they've played, they've only scored 17 points in each of those games. If Michigan can hold them under 20, their offense, as inept as it's been, can still keep them within striking distance. I think Michigan forces a turnover late in the game. I think Michigan's going to upset them. I could be way wrong on this, but I think Michigan's going to pull it out.
I think this is going to be one of those Big Ten beatdowns that doesn't look like it on the scoreboard, but it is in all actual aspects of the game. If you had to give me a score, I'd say 34-17 Penn State.
Okay,
I
fair
think
enough.
they can double them up.
Fair enough. All right, we'll see how it turns out. This is Loft Sports, signing off.